Well, I interrupted you before you were just about to launch into the four laws.
Yeah. Okay. So um, the four stages are cue, craving, response, and reward. The cue is something that you notice. So, for example, you see a plate of cookies on the counter. That's a visual cue. Starts the habit of eating a cookie. The craving is the prediction or the meaning that you assign to that cue. Often happens relatively automatically or quickly. So, you see the plate of cookies and you think, oh, that'll be sweet, sugary, tasty, enjoyable. It's that favorable meaning that leads to that dopamine spike that we talked about, and that motivates you to take the third step, which is the response. You walk over, you pick the cookie up, you take a bite. And then finally, there's the reward. Oh, it is in fact sweet, sugary, tasty, satisfying. Now, not every behavior in life is rewarding, right? Sometimes things have a cost or a consequence. Sometimes they're just kind of neutral and don't really mean a whole lot. But if a behavior is not rewarding, then it's unlikely to become a habit because you don't have any reason to repeat it again in the future. You need some kind of positive emotional signal associated with the behavior for you to stick with it. At least, as we've already talked about, an immediate signal.
Now, is there some evidence to suggest, if I remember back to like my Psych 101 class, which is obviously pretty elementary, that some of the most addictive behaviors are variably reinforcing? And I sort of remember this example of why slot machines are, particularly addictive because the pattern with which they produce a win is actually random. And therefore you really don't know when it's going to come. You know it's going to come. You have to have belief that, you'll see other people win and you've won in the past. But that's somehow even more addictive. Whereas the cookie, in theory, is not variably reinforcing. It's pretty much reinforcing the same way every time. I mean, presumably only subject to the tastiness of the cookie.
Yeah, so it's even more. There have been tons of studies done on variable rewards. And the basic answer is yes, you're right. Variable rewards tend to accelerate or intensify behavior. It can get even more twisted than that in the slot machines example, because what they have found is that the sweet spot tends to be right around 50-50. And so if you can imagine getting a reward at very different schedules, like you could get it 95% of the time, or you could get it 5%
Right.
of the time. Well, if you only get it 5% of the time, then you learn pretty quickly, like, hey, this isn't a very fruitful action. Maybe I should stop doing this. But if you get it around 50-50 and it tends to work out for you a lot, but not every time, and it still is coming at like roughly a random pattern, even if, over 10,000 trials, it works out to be about 50% of the time, man, you will just keep pressing that slot machine button over and over and over again. And, there have been studies done on mice where they would get a squirt of sugar water when they poke their nose in a box. And if they did it at a variable reward schedule, they would do it. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it was like 6,000 times in an hour or something, but it was, many, many times. And, we laugh at it thinking about mice, but we're not that different. The average slot machine player will press the button like 800 times in an hour. And so we're just basically, doing the same thing. So that variable reward, getting the reward, but not knowing exactly when it's going to happen, it gets you to do it more frequently. And you can think about examples like this in everyday life. Imagine a remote control where the battery's dying and you press the power button, but it doesn't turn on right away. And you're like, did that work? And then you press it again a little harder. And then maybe you press it again a third time. Now, if you do it, 8 or 9 or 10 times, you're like, okay, the batteries are dead. But if on the second try it turns on, then like the variable reward got you to do it again or got you to try the behavior more. So that variable reward schedule is definitely something that can intensify behavior.
You remember Anchorman? I assume you've seen. Yeah. This might actually mean that there is truth to the statement that 50% of the time it works every time.
Incredible reference. Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Little did we know that Will Ferrell was a cognitive psychology fan.
Wait, I think that was Paul Rudd's line, wasn't it? When he when he used Black Panther, the cologne.
Yeah.
Like,
amazing.
50% of the time it works every time.
I'm going to be honest with you. That smells like pure gasoline.
It's got bits of real panther in it. Oh, it's made by Odeon. That movie.
So those are the 4 stages. And what I like to do and what I consider to be the hallmark of like my work, I am I'm just interpreting the research. Like, I'm just pretending to be an academic. I'm not actually an academic. I think the value that I try to provide is to make these ideas actionable and to turn them into something that we can operationalize or apply to daily life. And the 4 laws of behavior change are how I have attempted to do that. So if we understand that a habit has those 4 steps, and how do we actually change our behaviors, we can follow these 4 laws, and there's one for each stage. So the first law of behavior change is to make it obvious. You want the cues of your good habits to be obvious, available, visible, easy to see. The easier it is to see or get your attention, the easier it is to notice, the more likely you are to act on it. The second law is to make it attractive. So the more attractive or appealing or exciting a habit is, the more likely you are to feel motivated to do it. So again, this is about anticipating it, or something you anticipate more, feel more motivated. The third law is to make it easy. The more easy, convenient, frictionless, simple a habit is, the more likely the behavior is to be performed. And then the fourth and final law is to make it satisfying. The more satisfying or enjoyable, pleasurable a habit is, the more likely you are to repeat it in the future. And so those 4 laws give you like a high level overview of how to build a good habit. So make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. You don't need all 4 every single time, but the more that you have those 4 things working for you, I think the more likely it is that the good behavior will stick, or that you'll find a way to start on it. If you want to break a bad habit, then you just invert those 4. So rather than making it obvious, you want to make the cue invisible. Unsubscribe from emails, reduce exposure to the cue. If you're trying to be on a diet, don't follow food bloggers on Instagram. So just, like reducing exposure to the thing that starts the process. Rather than making it attractive, make it unattractive. Rather than making it easy, make it difficult. So increase friction, put more steps between you and the behavior. And rather than making it satisfying, make it unsatisfying. Layer on some kind of immediate consequence or a cost to the behavior. And so those 4, make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying, give you a high level framework for how to break a bad habit.